Hello, everyone. This is Harvey Singh. I'm the CEO and founder of Instancy, and I'm very excited to present today's webinar on LinkedIn Live. Thank you very much for joining in. And I'm very excited to be speaking about a very hot topic today, which is generative AI. So every few years, the technology leaps forward, and we are able to add to whatever the previous technologies we have created, and we are able to leverage those technologies for the process of learning and performance support, which is how do we help our learners. Now, these could be our customers who need to get product training. These could be our customers who need to be supported on various services and solutions that we offer, and we need to answer their questions. And furthermore, we need to work on our employees and our people and our talent so we can have the right tools for them to be able to do their jobs in the best way possible. So that being the goal, and ultimately all of that serves the business goal of trying to grow the business and trying to build the company and trying to advance forward with our products and services and be able to generate more revenue and bring value to shareholders. So all of these technologies are aimed at ultimately serving that business goal. And we are speaking about knowledge revolution. And while the internet was a tremendous power and capability that was unleashed, when internet started in the early to mid 90s and then took off really toward the late 90s and took a hold with e-learning and web-based learning, and it has been growing in its utilization for the purpose of distribution of learning. But I think that now with that technology, we then added mobile learning and mobile technology. And now with AI, things are beginning to shift in a very fundamental way. And the AI is going to be a bigger revolution in many respects because it leverages everything that the internet has to offer, but it takes it to a whole different level. And we are just at the beginning of that revolution. So this knowledge revolution is just getting underway. And that's why it's very exciting for us to collaborate, communicate, and discuss and brainstorm ideas on how we can leverage that. And that's the purpose of this conversation today, is to, explain what we are working on, what I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, last few months, and then share that with you, and then invite you to have a conversation, one-on-one meetings. And these are not really, we have these meetings and they are not really paid, it's just basically for us as colleagues, as industry, practitioners, how we can use this technology for the purpose of learning, knowledge management, and performance. So that's the intent behind this. Now, I have been involved with practically every technology that has come along over the last 25 plus years and how we can use that for learning. So whether it's learning management systems, or it's mobile learning apps, or it's performance support applications, job aids, gamification, simulations, you name it. So my personal work is just to be able to take the latest technologies and try to apply them to improve the learning process. So I look at every single technology and see how we can harness that. What's the best way? What are the requirements from a business standpoint, from a learning standpoint, and how can technology help with that? So this presentation is along that thought process. And I want to talk about generative AI. And my today's focus is going to be about content creation and how do we generate content using AI, because one of the key aspects of generative AI is to be able to help you create multimedia content. And ChatGPT is one example, and ChatGPT has been in the news pretty much for the last few months and has captured headlines all over the globe. And that ChatGPT tool is now available to everyone they can create an account, and they have a free account and they have a paid account. So that allows people to see the power of generative AI. And currently, the ChatGPT tool is available in a browser, and you can also get it in a mobile app format. And you can begin to generate text with that. And people are beginning to see the power of that. And obviously, people also begin to realize that generating content and generating text, when ChatGPT generates some text, it's always needing to be further refined, and the human, the intention and what you want to do with that, you'll have to review whether the content is correct or whether the content is actually meeting your requirement, and if the content is actually formatted correctly and is accurate. So that human involvement is extremely important. You cannot expect that ChatGPT will create content and it satisfies all the requirements when it comes to the correctness and the validity of the information. So that part we have to be definitely concerned about. But I think what's really very exciting is that the technology of generative AI is a lot more than ChatGPT. And another thing is that the technology of the generative AI is to understand human language. So while the artificial intelligence was, coming along quite a bit over the years in terms of what is known as NLP, or natural language processing, which is the ability for the computer to be able to understand human language, which has many nuances and many contextual, complexities, for the computer to understand what is it that we are trying to say or ask. So one of the truly remarkable things about generative AI, it's really taken the idea of natural language processing to a whole different level, and it's beginning to look more and more human, and it's beginning to sound, oh yes, this is something a human would say in this way, in this format. And this capability has come about because generative AI has ingested billions and billions of data points and parameters, particularly understanding the written text across the internet and other sources. And furthermore, it is able to use very fast computing technology. So the technology of the cloud computing and the advanced GPUs and very, very powerful, clusters of computers who are working to process all of that in real time. That is truly remarkable. So there are many aspects of technology that have come together in order to achieve this current state of the art, where the generative AI is able to understand what the human person is asking for, what the question is, and what the context is as best. And then it is able to generate content which looks very, very human-like. And as a matter of fact, because it is trained on such a large volume of data and text, it can actually begin to predict what could be the next statement or words that need to be presented. And furthermore, you can even, adjust the tone of the, content or the intended audience, or you can adjust and ask for content to be presented in a certain way. Like you may want to ask the content to be presented in a tabular style and so on. So the way you ask the question, it is able to adjust. And that ability to ask the right kind of questions is now turning out to be a very important field, and it is known as prompt engineering. So the prompt engineering is also evolving because people are beginning to understand how to use the prompts in the right way. But another interesting thing that's emerging in parallel to that is that as prompt engineering becomes more and more significant, well, guess what? I mean, generative AI itself is being used to create the prompts, so that our prompt making is actually going to get easier and better and more sophisticated. And the AI will not only operate on the prompts and give us the results, but it will also help us in creating the right prompt. So that's where we are going as this technology evolves. Now, another interesting aspect of generative AI, that it's not limited to text. And there are many AI or generative AI models that are available in the market today that allow us to actually create different types of content. And it could be images, as well as other multimedia forms of content. So that actually allows for us to be even more creative and even more expressive. And particularly when it comes to e-learning, one of the things that we have all learned over the years is that multimedia is really what we need in e-learning in order to satisfy the needs of various learners out there. We have many learners with different learning styles, and there are many instructional theories and models, and there are a lot of different literature explaining the benefits and the requirement of adding multimedia content to our e-learning courses and stuff like that. Now, so that's where generative AI can be applied, because it helps us create many different kinds of content. And you can plug and play that content within your e-learning materials. Whether you're trying to create an ebook, or you're trying to create an e-learning course, or you may want to create a quiz or an assessment, all of these types of content can be, enhanced. These processes can be enhanced with generative AI, with the idea that you can now save a lot of time. So it's kind of like a co-pilot. That's a terminology that's become very common these days when it comes to generative AI. So a co-pilot is basically a computer agent who is working with you as a collaborator, as an assistant, or as a buddy who is going to create and brainstorm ideas. And it can finish the sentences that you start, or you have a simple idea in mind and it can expand on that and help save time. Particularly when we start to apply this on image generation, well, sometimes you're not able to find the images exactly on the internet, and we want to create an e-learning course and we have a certain idea that we want to communicate. So generative AI could help you create the exact image that you have in your mind. So you can describe the scene, you can describe the people, you can describe the age and what kind of attire they have, what kind of clothing, what the location is, what they're doing, and maybe they are interacting with other artifacts or other things. So you can simply describe what you want and it will generate multiple options for you to pick. And then you can certainly refine your prompt to get what you're looking for. This is very, very important for instructional designers, because we want to express ourselves and we want to be creative. Many times we want to use storytelling in our instructional design process. We want to tell a story and we want to include that in our e-learning sequence. So in that story, you want to create the right kind of imagery and you want to be able to express yourself. Now that will engage the learners because they are drawn to your story. They are drawn to the images that you have in your content, as well as the text. So we continue on to images, and then it doesn't stop there. Generative AI can help you create music and voiceovers. Well, I think that, again, auditory aspect of e-learning is very significant. Voiceovers are used all the time in terms of some sort of a narrative voice, some spoken voiceover, where you have the audio narration. Now, you want to be able to have the learners listen in, and in fact, they can even choose, okay, do I want to hear the audio or I just want to read the text, or maybe they want to get both. So generative AI is going to be able to help us create these multimedia elements. So there are different AI models available which are trained on different kinds of media. So there are AI models that are trained on music. So they have, instead of the text, they have been pre-trained on a very, very large volume of music and music compositions of a variety of different genres that you can think of. And now with that capability, you're able to prompt that generative AI to be able to, create some music. And the music that you need within your e-learning and the scenario that you have in mind, you can create, again, the music, and that could serve as a background music to your overall storyline, and so on. Similarly, if you want to create a voiceover, the generative AI has come a long way, where not only it creates human-like, speech, it can generate the audio, but now you can sample your own voice and you can upload that. If you have a recording of 30 seconds, you can upload that and it will help create an audio which will sound more like you. So you can not only say, I want to create a male voice or I want to create a female voice, but you can say, hey, I want to create a new content and I want to use my own voice as the, tonality or the quality of sound. So it will generate that sound. Now, it may not be 100%, sounded just like you, but it will match it, and these AIs are getting better and better, and they are literally getting better every month. So that quality of audio and how it matches with your own sound, it's getting, pretty close to the natural sounding real voice of a person. Now, it doesn't really stop there. It really gets us into many, many different kinds of content possibilities. So one of them is language translation. So again, when we bring that to e-learning, we are now multinational organizations. We are working across the globe. We have audiences scattered in various geographies, and we are challenged to create content in multiple languages. And, it's cumbersome to be able to, first of all, write the right kind of content and then be able to translate that. And you need to have different services and different professionals helping with that. But with generative AI, you can automate the process to a large extent. Maybe not 100%, but to a large extent. And this, again, is something that AI is getting very, very good at. AI is able to transform that content in many different, languages. And it's beginning to look very similar to how a human, translation expert may have translated that text. So you can certainly get the idea from the generative AI, get the translation done, and then maybe an expert can proofread that and maybe make some small corrections. Again, a huge time and cost saving in that. Now, we are able to also generate video. Now, the video is something new in terms of generative AI capability because video is a lot more complex. But again, if you think about it, as a video is made up of many frames of images, moving at 20, 30 frames per second or more. So we are able to create images. So then the video is just the next, next step to be able to create a sequence of, scenes which have some sort of, movement of people and different images which flow together. So obviously it's complex and AI is figuring that out. And there are tools available that will help you generate video. And one of the qualities of videos that we can actually have avatars speaking and we present the video. And we'll talk about all of these things in a little bit more in detail. And one of the other aspects of the generative AI is the ability to generate code. Now that actually, again, goes to a whole different level. Now, we've had software developers, programmers, and website developers who create the coding, the scripting that's needed to be able to then have the computer, play the content on the screen and be able to operate on the instructions and be able to carry out different tasks. Well, now that the, computer and generative AI has become sophisticated to generate text and also to be able to have logic, and to be able to understand the logic as well as the text and how it's to be put together, it can generate software code. So it's able to write code in practically every programming language. So that means that our software developers will tremendously benefit, and they are already saving a lot of time and energy. When they develop software, they can use generative AI as a co-pilot to be able to develop their software. And in the e-learning, when we develop e-learning courses, when we need interactivity in our pages, we need advanced visuals, and we want to be able to create some web pages. And again, that's just an example of how the generative AI can be used to create your HTML and CSS and other coding that's required to build components of a web page. And furthermore, you can extend it to say, well, hey, if it can go that far, then can it actually create a complete page? Oh, okay, well, if it can go that far, then can it create an entire course? So I think that's where it's headed. Gradually it's headed there. So we start with the building blocks, and it started out with text and then images and then video and so on. So I think it's kind of, as you can see, that we are headed in the direction where the generative AI is going to be sophisticated enough to be able to, get very, very sophisticated content of all different modalities and different multimedia capabilities and put that all together with our prompts. That's where it's headed. But we're not quite there yet, but we have these capabilities today in terms of generating different media, different modalities of content that we do have today. And we can start leveraging and building that. And as the technology evolves, we will continue to leverage that. So with that idea in mind, let's go forward in our conversation today. But I want to ask you a question here: that are you currently using ChatGPT or any other generative AI tool for your personal productivity, your personal use on a day-to-day basis? And you can chat, you can just simply put on the message channel here, a Y for yes and N for no, and maybe, M for maybe later kind of thing. So you can put that, so I can just get a general idea how many of you are beginning to use ChatGPT for your personal use. Yes, so I think most people are beginning to use that, and some people just getting into it. So that's understandable. But I think most of you are beginning to use. The same question I would ask, when it comes to using the ChatGPT technology for your work. And you can again mention, Y for yes, N for no, and maybe later you can put an M or something like that. And while you are doing that, you might have heard that ChatGPT has announced a business version of their application. So ChatGPT can be now used by business users, or more in tune with what the business users need. So one of the things that they provide is that the ability for keeping your data private, so that whatever conversations you are having, they are going to be not used to feed that ChatGPT engine and training of data in the the large language model that the ChatGPT is using. So another feature they've added in the business account is that you can share the conversations with the team. And if you have, for example, have a conversation on creating marketing materials, or creating certain instructional videos, or creating certain video scripts and stuff like that, so then you can share that conversation with other team members. So again, they are moving in the direction of more utilization in the business environment. And there are a lot of studies now where McKinsey and other prominent, consulting organizations, they are beginning to realize that, well over 60-70% of the business executives and business users are planning to use ChatGPT and generative AI in general within the next 1 year. So we will definitely see. It's kind of like the internet. When the internet started, there were a few people, and then more and more and more and more people joined. So I think the earlier we join, the better it is for us to be able to leverage the benefits. So I think that's really what we are going to be talking about. How can we use generative AI, not just ChatGPT? Like I said earlier, ChatGPT is a well-established brand now. I mean, I think people recognize that, but there's many, many more things out there when it comes to generative AI, and I'll mention them as we go further. Also, I do anticipate that Google is actually working on and has been actually one of the pioneers in generative AI, and they have actually already released their generative AI equivalent to ChatGPT called Bard, B-A-R-D, and that's available for free. You can use that. But I think that I anticipate that Google will be coming out with a much more comprehensive generative AI solution for both personal use as well as for business use. And that should be coming out sometime this year. It's my anticipation between now and the end of the year. And I also anticipate that the GPT ChatGPT, OpenAI, the company behind that, has already provided GPT-4, which is their advanced, language model or the generative AI technology. And they are also going to be coming out with a new release, a new version. I mean, they are already doing incremental improvements, but there should be an announcement before the end of the year is what I anticipate. So with that, building up, I think that the whole generative AI field is getting more and more sophisticated. And I think that it will sweep across all businesses, across all sectors, kind of like a wildfire. I do see that coming in the coming months. And that's why these conversations, I'm going to have them pretty much on a, not only monthly, I'm even thinking like at least once in 2 weeks. And I'm actually planning to create some sort of a newsletter, because I think that the power of these technologies is very, very exciting, and things are changing very, very fast. And we need to be able to communicate with each other and have sharing going on as a learning practitioners in a faster way. So what this generative AI is going to be able to do for us is that we can embed that in authoring tools, which we use day to day for creating e-learning content. And that's what we have done here. So what we have created is a generative AI authoring system and content management system. What it allows you to do is generate content of various types. You can create text content, you can create videos, you can create audio. So it brings together a lot of these generative AI models in a single place. And it also helps in creating some prompts or creating certain, point and pick and choose options so that you can simply select what you need and generate the content. So the intention is that we bring together many different aspects of generative AI in one place, of different media types and different kinds of content, voiceovers and textual content, as well as different kinds of text that you will see today, as well as video and other things. So one of the things we start with is the textual content. So you can create text. So you can simply put in a brief description. It could be one line or one sentence, or more description if you want, and more specific you are, the better. And then it will help generate the text for you. Then you can edit it. And once you're satisfied with it, you can simply add it to your e-learning page. So in this way, we are able to create snippets of content. We're able to read it. We're able to verify it. We like it. So it's actually like a pop-up, like a Copilot. You can ask for certain text to be created. If you don't like it, you can regenerate that text, and you can then add it to your authoring page, and you can work on that. Now the next one is that we can generate images. So what we started out with was that there is a generative AI model from OpenAI called DALL-E, which is DALLE, DALL-E. So that allows you to create images by simply giving a prompt in simple English. Now, I'm looking for a person who's climbing up the mountain, and he's wearing a business suit, and he has a briefcase in his hand, and he's about 45 years old. So if we say something like that, generative AI will create an image for you, and then you can regenerate it if you don't like it, or you can use it within your e-learning course. Now, what we also found along the way is that there are other generative AI models that are available, like Midjourney and so on, which allow us to create even more sophisticated and many realistic and many genres of images that you can create, from fine arts to oil painting to, photorealistic and so on and so forth. And it gets very, very sophisticated because you can specify the camera and the quality of the lens and what style of images you want to create, and you can describe your scene. So what we did was we actually created a tool where all the different types of combinations of parameters that you can provide, which otherwise you have to remember and worry about, okay, what exactly can I say here so that the generative AI will give me the right image. So we have actually done the research and basically provided these drop-down options. You can pick and choose, and essentially generate the image from that. And we actually support multiple image generation, or 3 different types of generative AIs right now, and that way you can use them to generate your images. And of course, each of these models is going to have their own quality of images that they generate, and over time, authors, e-learning authors will have preference whether they want to use Midjourney or they want to use DALL-E, and then they can just give their prompt, select the options, and generate their images. And if they're satisfied with it, again, they can pick the one they like, and that gets added to the authoring page. The authoring tool is a place where you can actually further work on what you got, and you can add to it. So you're assembling your e-learning content in that way. You're basically able to get the text, get the images, and make your selections and keep building your content in that way. Now, another thing that we found very interesting was that, hey, generative AI is very good at understanding the language, and it's also very good at expressing that in different formats. So that's where it gets very interesting. Like I mentioned to you earlier, that generative AI can be useful for not only creating text, like in a article style or something, or a blog style or what have you, but it can also create the content in a certain format. And so if we have the right formatting and right coding, that code can be used to then further generate content or further create certain information. So that's what we're doing here. We are actually using generative AI. You can actually put forward in simple English that I want to create a diagram, because I think that diagrams are really what instructional designers think in their mind. I want to communicate a hierarchy so that my students understand how these products fit together in a hierarchy, or how this concept works. They might want to explain some hierarchical, information. So generative AI is going to give us the code, so you don't have to worry about the code part, and then it will generate the diagram. And if you want to modify your prompt and you want to modify a little bit of the code, you can do that, and it will give you this diagram, which you can then use within your e-learning course. And there are many types of diagrams that you can generate, like timelines or state diagrams, or even sequencing diagram, or a timeline, or a flowchart. So you can practically create any of these kinds of diagrams, and there's actually a help tool that tells you what kind of diagrams are possible, and it gives you some sample prompts that you can leverage. So in this way, we are able to create diagrams, which I think sometimes we miss out on, because diagrams take more time to create and present and all that, and you have to make an image in the right format and add that to your e-learning page. But with this generative AI, we can simplify that process so that the e-learning content becomes more enhanced and has better types of multimedia elements, which will help our learners understand the concepts and so on. Right. Well, we go further from there, and we also started to integrate video. Like I said earlier, generative AI can be useful for videos. Now, in this, what we're doing is we're using a different AI model which generates video. But in this example, we are working with a generative AI which will take avatars, and these are like photos of people, and you can pick which one you like and which person that you want to use in your video. And you can type your text that, okay, I want this person to speak about all these things, and it will generate the content, the script for what the person is going to say, by you simply describing in very, very brief description what you're looking for. It will complete that train of thought and give you a complete 2 or 3 paragraphs, or you can review that content. Then you can also pick the character, which person you want to use, and it will actually have the animated character. So the animated character can then be added into your e-learning. So in this way, you can add videos along with other kinds of content that we spoke about. Then we continue our journey here. So we can actually add questions. So when we generate text, well, we can also ask the generative AI to provide us questions. So for example, we have certain content and we have added some page of content and we want to generate some questions on that. So developing questions requires obviously some time to think creatively about, okay, well, what exactly could we ask the user, which might, make sure that they understood what we're saying. And we want to have some choices, some question and some options the user can select. So the generative AI can create many questions on top of the content that you have created. So you generate some content and then you can also generate some questions on that. Now you can pick and choose which questions you like to add to your e-learning course, and then those get added to your authoring tool, and you can then incorporate them into your instructional sequence. Now we can extend that to also generate surveys. Now surveys are going to be helpful as a feedback from the learners back to us, what they thought about our e-learning course. So here again, there are some options that you can pick. What type of survey that you want to create? Is that for a virtual class? Is it for a physical class? Is it for an e-learning course? How many questions do you want to create? So you pick and choose those options and it will generate the survey questions for you, and then you can pick the questions you like and you can add them to your page. So you can further edit that information and apply that to your actual survey. So we have a survey authoring tool, just like there is a e-learning authoring tool, there's a survey authoring tool, there's a assessment authoring tool. So you can utilize this content in those different authoring tools. Now you can also decide whether you want to have the survey only ask open-ended questions, or you want to have a mixture of different types of questions. So you can pick and choose those options again. And so again, we don't need to remember to use these in the prompts, because otherwise our prompt will become very complex and we have to remember. So we want to take off that load and just have those easy options to pick and choose, and then the generative AI can do the rest for us. So it again simplifies the process of creating content. So we want to actually improve the quality of our content, and we want to add more multimedia enhancements, and we want to save the time at the same, we want to save time and the cost, and also have better quality content. So that's kind of the ultimate goal, is to have better, cheaper, and faster content. Now, you can also generate video transcripts. So for example, let's say that you have a video already and you want to utilize that, and you want to be able to present the transcript of that content to the user, so the users can read the information while they, some people prefer to read as opposed to, just watching the video. So transcripts are again cumbersome, but the generative AI is available. You simply upload your video, it will translate the text and give it to you. And not only that, you can also express that in multiple languages. So this is again another technology that is, we can add that to the authoring information, and that's what we have done here. You can translate the content into multiple languages. So I have a video, I want to bring it in, I want to transcribe that into multiple languages. You can also add those translations into the transcription. We already spoke about language translation, where you can take your page of e-learning content and you want to present that in multiple languages, and that will save you a lot of time in generating that content. Now we go further from there, and we started to experiment that can we actually create a micro-learning course using generative AI. And this is what we have come up with so far. You describe your course, and it comes up with a list of few topics for the pages. Let's say that microlearning is going to be 7 pages or 7 frames of content, very short, maybe 3 pages and all that. So you can then pick and choose which topics you want to include, and you can edit them. And if you want, you can also suggest how many topics you're looking, how many pages of microlearning you're looking for, and then it will actually go forward and create you a outline, or it will actually fill in the text images around that content, and will fill out all the assets that you need for building a complete microlearning out of that. So it will create the image, it will build the text for all the pages and the page titles. You can preview that, and you can also add it to your page. So So again, our goal here is to provide a complete toolbox for any kind of or any modality of learning. And e-learning comes in multiple shapes and forms. You have web-based content, and within that web-based content, you have assessments and surveys. You have videos, and videos can be also part of an e-learning course, or it could be standalone, or it could be a podcast, which could be an audio within the course, or it could be standalone. But we also now have new forms of content which are going to get more and more significant as time goes, and they are already available. And the technology for this has been around for a few years, and more e-learning developers are utilizing that in their instructional content. So some of your content can be expressed as augmented reality. So in this, what we are using is not only using generative AI to create some of the assets for this kind of a course, but we're also using the computer vision to be able to present that content through our mobile device. And the computer device can have the camera showing us the real world, and we can overlay on that real world certain content. So we can, for example, visualize a 3D object, and the background of that 3D object could be a real world. And I want to, for example, present my three-dimensional content on top of that camera view, which is a real world. So I'm enhancing the real world with instructional content overlaid on the real world so that it becomes a lot more informative, and I can make decisions based on that. So here we are able to generate the text that you see with these three-dimensional objects. So the same kinds of content that I mentioned, you want to bring them into your virtual reality world, into your augmented reality world. But here we're also adding one more capability, which is to be able to add 3D characters and generate them using AI, and be able to add 3D characters into your virtual reality content that you create. So again, the intention here is that we have a drag and drop tool. It does not require any programming. The virtual reality can be created without any programming whatsoever. And you can create scenes. And on that scenes, you can add objects. So the generative AI can be helpful to give us some ready-made options, and then we can pick certain animations or, certain, attire or costume that we want the character to have. And they can be added to the 3D stage. And just like you create PowerPoint slides, you can create three-dimensional content, and you can add characters, and you can, give it a certain look and style of, hairstyle and stuff like that. And you can also add images to your three-dimensional scenes, all right? And you can add questions to your three-dimensional scenes as well. So in this way, we can basically allow for the generative AI to help us in all modalities, all kinds of blended learning content. As a matter of fact, we also added a tool within this authoring system to be able to meta tag the content. One of the important aspects of developing a learning repository is that you want to be able to tag the content so that you can easily find it. You can reuse that as a team. So if I have a team of instructional designers, so subject matter experts, we have created some assets, some text and some videos and images, and we have created, audio and e-learning modules and all that. Well, if we are not able to search that content and tag that content, it becomes very hard to reuse. So we actually added a meta tagging tool so that once you have a title for your asset, whether it's a microlearning course asset or it's a video, it will fill out the details in terms of the short description and long description, and you can further enhance if you like, but it will generate that content for you. So again, we are using generative AI more and more to be able to, penetrate into all aspects of our content, meta tagging the content, and also we intend to use it for classifying the content, categorizing the content, right? So your categories of content, your tagging of the content, and all these different variations and multimedia content can be generated all in one place without doing any programming and without logging on to 7-8 different websites. So you can do that in one place. That's the intention. And furthermore, we began to work with, hey, we have a lot of science in instructional design about learning, how can we induce the generative AI with that knowledge? So, for example, how do we write learning objectives and stuff like that? So, we are actually training the generative AI to be able to speak instructional design and be able to present content which is instructionally sound. So, it can aid us in creating the content in the right way, so that instructional designers will be able to pick and choose the options they want and really move fast with developing their content. Now, one other important content type that I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak about that, is that in my view of things, as I see this evolution of generative AI, one of the most powerful capabilities of generative AI is to be able to provide specific response or specific answers to the questions that users have. And actually, if you see that there are 200 million users who started to use ChatGPT within the first 3 months of its release earlier this year. So as you can see that immediately people gravitated toward that chat interface. They were able to relate to that. They were able to, put in their queries and put in their questions and get responses. So chat actually works. And it has also been shown, as you know, through various tools in the past, like Messenger from Facebook or WhatsApp from Facebook, or other types of chat tools, like even in the business environment, like Microsoft Teams. So we know that chat is an application that is one of the most popular apps on the mobile devices as well. So now we can actually combine the power of generative AI with chat. And that leads us to chatbot. That's really ultimately what a chatbot is actually going to automate the responses. So if I chat with another human, which is what we normally do in a chat, but here the other person is actually a robot. It's actually a computer agent who's going to actually respond back. And if the responses are very close to a human response, then we have possibility of a conversation and a possibility of the user deriving benefit from that. So if our learners have to be informed about the information at the right time, well, it's one thing to give them an entire course, and then they have to go into certain pages of information and find it. That becomes cumbersome at times. Of course, we need a course many times, because if they're going to learn, they go through the complete process of learning in a formal way, in a structured way. That's required. But then we need them to be able to ask questions and be able to get information just in time. And if we had a chatbot that can suck up all that content, that can ingest all that information, that can, aggregate all of that into some sort of a knowledge machine, then it can begin to answer questions that the learners have. Now, that's where I think I'm very excited to say that, you can actually take the assets that you already have and leverage them. So I want to pause here to ask you, are you actually currently using chatbots in any of your learning projects? Are you delivering any e-learning content with chatbots today? Again, Y for yes, N for no, and M for maybe later this year. Okay, so I think some of you are talking about beginning to use that. So that's wonderful. And what we have done is, again, with that philosophy of, can we create e-learning and instructional content without any programming whatsoever? So we talked about a complete authoring toolbox. And one of the tools in that toolbox is a chatbot builder. So it adds to that toolbox, where we have a tool for augmented reality, a tool for virtual reality, a tool for e-learning course, a tool for assessment, and a tool for surveys, and so on. And then within those tools is generative AI has been induced in there as a co-pilot. And in this chatbot, you can actually upload the content that you already have. That's what I like about the chatbot composition and the chatbot authoring tool, that unlike e-learning course, where you have to systematically think about an instructional sequence and all the multimedia content that comes, as a next step from there, In the chatbot, you can take the content like documents and videos and even PowerPoints, PDF files, and websites. Now, it can actually have a lot of these content types that are already readily available. Practically every company has assets in these common formats. And now what we want that chatbot to do is to be able to answer questions on that. Because now the thing is that one of the challenges that people have pointed out is that if I have the chatbot like ChatGPT answer questions from the data that it already has, and it begins to answer the questions that my learners are asking, that answer may not be right. How do I know that chatbot is speaking the right information and is giving accurate content to my learners? How do I know that? That's one of the challenge. Well, that's what this technology, what I'm talking about, solves. So what we have done is leverage the generative AI technology, but we apply that generative AI on your private content of common file types, and you can simply upload them, and the chatbot can answer questions on that data, on your private data, so that it will not hallucinate over some, pre-trained data which we don't know where the source is, what it's talking about. We can control the conversation, and we can control the information that the chatbot is going to provide. And we can, if the answer is not available, the chatbot can simply say, I don't have the answer. So it's not going to make up the answer. It's going to look at the private data that you have supplied. What it's going to do, however, is going to take that data that you supply, all this unstructured files and PowerPoints and everything that we have, it's going to extract the content from there, right? It's going to extract that, and it's actually going to compile that into a knowledge engine, and it's actually going to look at the question that the user is asking. So that's where the natural language understanding comes in. And the generative AI is good at that. It's going to understand the user question. It's going to try to find the matching response. And it's not just going to be based on keywords. It's going to be contextualized. It's going to be semantic search. It's going to try to find that, okay, if you ask a question about banana, then if it found some information about fruit, it'll see that it's actually matching or not. Obviously, if it finds some things which mentions banana, well and good. But it could be that some other content which may not have actually mentioned the word banana, but it could be a good response to your question. It will try to surface that as a response. And it can also give you a link to that actual document where you can click and read more about it. So within that chat interface, we are going to be able to provide these kind of question answers. But then we don't stop there. We say, well, sometimes, and I also want to lead the user through a conversation, not only just question answers, but I want to provide some instructional sequence. So we provide a flow, a visual flow tool within this chatbot composer. So you can have your topic, and the topic may have a video. After the video, we want to ask some questions, and then we open it up for the user to ask questions. So we could define certain flow of conversation, which the instructional designer can plan, and they can implement that in a visual style, again, without writing. And that can be part and parcel of this chat conversation. Now, what I like to present to you here is that the chatbot can actually be your entire course if you wish it to be. So it could actually be a complement to a course, or it could be an entire course. So you could actually have 5 topics, and you can have a logic and the flow. And like I said, you can embed, and that's what we have done here, different from the other chatbots that are out there, which actually provide answers on your website or answers on your documents. This actually is a learning chatbot. So we want that quality of learning to come into the chatbot. If I'm going to use that as a course, or if I'm going to use that as a learning website, I want to organize my content. I want it to answer questions, but I also want the chatbot to lead the learner through a journey, through a learning experience. And I want to also ask questions. I want to present multimedia content. I want to be able to assess whether the user answered those questions correctly or not. And I want to be able to add that to my report, to be able to add that to my, learning management system. So we want to integrate that with a learning management system, so it sits next to our rest of the courses. We have courses which are SCORM compliant. We have courses that track the user progress. So in a similar way, I want to be able to track if I add questions, I want to know whether users actually learned. So that's kind of the quality of the chatbot that we have created. It can be added to a website like you see here. And in fact, in this case, we have a learning experience or learning management website. And the chatbot is actually there sitting in the corner. You can open it and ask any questions. Now we have a mobile app for this chatbot. So you can actually publish a chatbot application on the mobile device, and the learners can download that app and they can have a more mobile experience type of a conversation with the chatbot. So mobile apps, I mean, again, my question is that, are you currently using mobile apps for your learners? Have you provided mobile apps for your e-learning program so far? Again, Y for yes, N for no, and maybe later this year, M. Okay, so all right, so I think some of the folks are talking about. So I think this chatbot is, or mobile apps are not quite, I think maybe around less than 50% from what I can gather. But chatbot is actually I would say that user interface, which is actually going to get more and more prominent, as you can begin to see with the various tools like ChatGPT, and there are more coming from Google and other major players. So conversational interface is kind of the future of user interfaces for dealing with computers, to interact with computers and get what we want. And computers are going to understand English and natural language, our human language. And it could be different languages that humans speak. So ability for the computer to understand all that. And we can embed visuals and images in our chat conversations. So when you ask the question, you can not only type a text, but you can also input a camera screenshot, or you can actually have an uploaded image. Now the generative AI will process the information based on the text and the visuals, because it has computer vision capability and it can respond to that. It can provide you a course. If you ask for a course and you simply give it an image, it will find the course that matches that image and it will give you that, and you can view that course. Or it will actually answer the question from the knowledge base. All right, so I think that that gives you an idea about all these capabilities. And I want to emphasize that this is all new technology, and it's basically, we are speaking about it as we are developing it, as we are releasing the first version of it, and for you to try out and collaborate with us. So we can provide you free access for you to try this out, for you to give us feedback, and we can actually begin to enhance it on a, month by month. You begin to see how these things will come together for us. So I have actually shared with you a lot of capabilities that we have developed. We have released much of it for you to try out, and we are adding enhancements every month. Now, I think I have provided my contact information, so if you can send us an email, would love to collaborate. And let me see if there are some questions that users may have. I think one of the questions that came up was that how do we look at the accuracy of the content? How do we ensure that the generative AI is doing the right thing? So I want to answer it in a couple of ways. As I mentioned, in the chatbot technology, we are actually using the private data that you have and answering questions on that, right? Now, actually, the same thing can be applied. Like if I want to generate questions for my instructional e-learning course, okay, I can say generate these questions on top of my PDF file. Or I can say that I have this video, please upload. I upload the video and I say use this transcription of this video and now create questions on top of that. Or generate content, that's based on this video. So your content is going to be kind of streamlined and channelized in a certain direction by you prompting the information to the generative AI. So the more we can tame it, so to speak, It's like taming the beast, right? I mean, this generative AI has all types of content. How do we tame it? We tame it by providing our own content. So, and we also say that, hey, don't go beyond that. When you are a chatbot, I want you to, and one of the options in the chatbot, all you have to do is check that option, saying, don't allow the chatbot to go outside my private data to answer the question. And we have an option that we are creating in the new release, which comes out, in September. You can indicate that I want to allow the chatbot to go to the internet and find the answer, or I want to allow the chatbot to go into the generative AI, large language model, whatever the data it has. I allow the chatbot to answer the question if the answer is not found within my private data. So that becomes an option. If you think you want to allow that option, well and good. If you want to control and say, no, I don't want my chatbot to be saying anything, because it's a private chatbot for my private knowledge, for me to impart certain product information to my customers. And I don't want that chatbot to answer any kind of questions in a random way. Yes, you can control it with your private data. So yes, I think that there are ways to tame this beast, and that's really what this game is all about. We are going to be able to add more and more capabilities to refine all these processes. So our time has come to an end, and I wanted to appreciate your time today to join me in this journey. And like I said, I will be presenting additional capabilities and talking about generative AI in many different ways. What we have talked about today is mostly about content, but I wanted to assure you and excite you that generative AI can help us in many, many more ways. We did not speak about today, but generative AI is going to be helpful in many, many different aspects of our tasks that we perform and automation of various business things. And it's going to be revolutionary, nothing less than revolutionary technology. I'm convinced of that, and I hope that you are as well. And I want to invite you to collaborate and work together so that we can take this forward and apply that in meaningful ways to help our learners, to help our organizations succeed. So again, this is Harvey Singh. I appreciate your time and look forward to further communication. And with that, I will close the webinar today.